Okay, here's a walk around of my new 1997 two-door Tahoe. It's gonna sound kind of interesting, but if anybody has watched any of my other videos, I had a 93 Suburban that I did a solid axle swap on, a bunch of different stuff on it. Well, all of the parts, at least most of the drivetrain parts, axle, suspension, everything from that are now in this. Sounds kind of crazy that I did that, but it was a 93. It was the older interior. It was a fun rig. I got a lot of use out of it, quite a bit of use out of it. But a lot of interior stuff was starting to go. Was actually having, if people go back and look, you can see I swapped an 8.1 into that Suburban. I was actually having issues with the wiring harness, the Howell harness. I've always had a little bit of issues with that harness. I don't know why. I don't know if it's just an issue with Howell or the computer and the tune that they did. I don't know. I was always just chasing issues with it. And I came across this two-door Tahoe, and some of the features of it that I'll show you in a second made it that I was like, I need to go buy that thing. I've always loved these things. I love Blazers, like K5 Blazers, and I always thought that these things were awesome. A two-door Tahoe that's like a GMT 400 Blazer. So I was always just kind of keeping my eye out for one that was what I would want, that was a decent price. They're obviously a little bit more rare, so people are wanting more for them. But I ended up finding this one. Like I said, it's a 97 two-door Tahoe. Has just like 159,000, almost 160,000 miles on it. And I literally took all the parts, all of the drivetrain parts from my Suburban, and it is now under this. So the ORD brackets, the leaf springs, I just washed this thing so it's still dripping wet a little bit, but the leaf springs, the steering, the shocks, the brake lines, literally everything that was under this is under my Suburban is under this now. And even so, the axle out of my Suburban, that is a GM 14 bolt, but it was the stock one that was in my Suburban, is in this now. With it being a GMT 400 swapped to a GMT 400, it just bolted in. The spring widths are the same, everything's the same. I obviously kept the factory leaf springs out of this, are in here, but the shackle flips and the shackles and the easy inch and everything that was, and the shocks and the brake line that, you know, in the rear of the Suburban is in this now. So I mean, you can go back and look at videos of kind of what I had in that. I guess a quick, so the front axle is an 89 Ford Dana 60. That was a dually axle that I converted to single rear wheel. 410 gears open in the front, 410 gears open in the rear for now. As you can see, disc brake conversion on the rear. I probably, so my Suburban was a big block. This thing is obviously the 5.7 liter Vortex small block. I probably will do gears and lockers in this now. I always thought about doing it on my Blazer, but now that it's something in a small block, I think I will end up going to some sort of gears. I haven't quite decided whether I'm going to do 488s or 513s, because these are the same 35s that were on the Blazer or on my Suburban, but I have some 37s in my shop I'm going to throw on this. So 37s, small block, you know, should probably do some gears, but I mean, it's running and everything now. Let's see, the slide, I literally took the sliders off of my Suburban. I cut the little steps off that I had on the bottom. I, you know, narrowed them and then welded them up on this, and then I added these tubes off of it that kind of act as a step, but also act as, will protect from rocks. Another reason why I wanted to put them into this, one, I mean, the two-door Tahoes are freaking awesome, and now this is a crazy awesome two-door Tahoe. But two, the reason why I built my Suburban in the first place is I wanted it to be a little bit of a mild wheeler. Obviously have a couple hardcore wheelers, but I wanted something that was like, oh, if I just want to drive the trail and go do, you know, a long, easier trail with the family, or drive it up into the mountains, go fishing, go camping, you know. That's kind of why I built it, but the Suburban being as big as it was, I didn't really use it as much for that. I honestly used it a lot as a tow rig. I towed quite a bit of stuff with it. But I mean, I got a lot of use at it, did a lot of family trips on it. Now I want this to be an actual wheeler. Obviously mild wheeler, I'm not gonna beat this thing up. Don't wanna beat it up. But yeah, that was another reason for this. So those sliders are on there. The rear bumper, which is a question I get a lot from a lot of people. Bought it off of eBay, but it's a company called Hook Road. I think they're out of California when I looked them up. They mainly make Jeep stuff, but I was just searching Google, and they make this for a Tahoe and a Suburban. Now, with this being a two-door Tahoe, the mounting is just a smidge different. Not a lot, just a smidge different, because there isn't obviously as much room behind the wheel well as on a four-door Tahoe or a Suburban. So I had to kind of mess with it a little bit to get it onto here. It really wasn't much, not really anything. But it didn't just straight bolt on. I had to do some stuff to get it to fit on this one. Not a big deal. Came with the lights. I have the lights hooked up to the reverse lights. So when I put it in reverse, the lights turn on. When I put it in, you know, take it out of reverse, they turn off. It's kind of nice. Jerry can, 5-gallon jerry can. I mean, I put the spare tire on the back here, and I really want to, with it being a two-door Tahoe, to maximize space in the back so that I can put as much stuff in there whenever I want to. The bolt pattern on the mount for this is obviously set up for a 6-bolt, standard Chevy 6-bolt, because it's supposed to go in a half-ton Tahoe or Suburban. So I had to change it to an 8-bolt, because obviously I have 1-ton pattern now. Really wasn't a big deal. The studs coming through are just bolts that are tack welded on the back of the plate. And so I just cut the tacks off, beat them out, and then just re-drilled the plate for 8 on 6.5, so I can put this on here. It says it can handle up to a 35. That is obviously a 285, so basically a 33, because I got 35s on there right now. When I put the 37s on, I might put these 35 on back here. It doesn't seem to rattle. It's very nice. The clips and everything are really well made. They thought of a lot of stuff. They got these little dampeners that it sits on, so it reduces rattle. They also got some there to reduce rattle. They thought of a lot of stuff. And then they have these little clips here that it just goes, and it. So I just, you know, nice and easy, come out and click, and it clicks into place, holds itself, does it on both sides. They even thought of a lot of stuff like that little thing makes it so that when I open up my doors here, so I have one on both sides, when I open up my doors and they go fully, they can kind of hit that and not hit your paint. Really well built bumper. And then, I mean, the other reason why I did it is because the freaking price. Like, you go look at what it costs to get a swing out tire carrier, you know, pretty well built bumper with all of these features on it. I mean, you're paying, for a lot of these guys, $1,500, the cheapest. You know, a lot of these companies are wanting $2,500, which is insane to me, even with prices of metal being pretty high. That's insane. I mean, that's crazy. This thing, when I bought it on eBay, I had a little discount thing through my eBay thing too, and it shipped directly from this company out of California. But I bought it on eBay, and it was like $720 to my door, free shipping. So when I saw that, I was like, man, I don't even think I can build it for that. So I just bought this, and to be honest with you, I freaking love it. I was so happy I did it. It was a little bit of a tough pill to swallow, but I'm really happy I did it. It's awesome. So features of this, Barn freaking doors. I love barn doors. I know that the tailgate and lift hatch on these years is a lot better and a lot nicer. And they're really, you know, compared to square bodies, but I absolutely love barn doors. They are my favorite. Love the access, love the simplicity, everything about them. So, I'll get to the front bumper, but that was my winch and a cradle that I had for my Suburban. Works on this thing. Set it up to work on this. As you can also see, matte floors. So this thing is a base model 2-door Tahoe, which I don't think that there were very many base models made. That right there is the money shot for me. Crank windows, freaking love it. So yeah, this thing is crank windows, matte floors, barn doors, and really, really clean inside. Really awesome. So I actually put these seats in. I love the cloth. So with this thing being a base model, it had these style in the rear seats, like kind of leather style. They were in the front. They weren't bad. They were in okay shape. But I absolutely love the cloth GMT 400 seats. I think they're some of the best seats ever built. They're the most comfortable. I love them. So I found this set for pretty cheap. And I mean, their colors I mean, it was all gray in here. It colors a little bit off, but it ain't anything. I don't give a crap. These things are in great shape. I also added a center console. It did not have a center console. I added that. My brother had one from one of his rigs. Good shape, so I bolted that down. Oh, and also manual shift T-case. So love it. Freaking love it. Really good shape. So I also added a double din radio. I usually don't do a lot of stuff with radios, but I had to replace the fan motor was jacked up. I had to replace that. The light switch for the headlights over there on the other side, that was jacked up. I had to replace that. That was cheap. Also the controls for the HVAC was a little jacked up, so I had to replace that. But when I was in there, I was like, oh, and the radio worked, but the buttons were missing, you know, classic stuff like that. So I saw some videos of guys doing this, and I kind of splurged and ended up getting this double din. So that thing plays DVD player, or DVDs, you know, CDs. So I can have my family in here and watch a movie. I thought that was kind of cool. I did replace the rear speakers too, because they were all blown. So it's got new speakers in the rear. You can see, like, the interior is in phenomenal shape for this thing. Matte floors, crank freaking windows. Love the crank windows, and they are smooth as smooth can be. Love it. Then on the front bumper, so this is made by a company called the main base bumper is made by a company called 4x Design. Never even heard of these guys before. Just happened to come across them on Facebook. The guy's only on Facebook. He doesn't have a website. It's only Facebook. And makes these kind of off-road style high clearance front bumpers for square bodies, GMT 400s, and I think he has some for GMT 800s. They are a weld together yourself bumper. So it comes as a kit, you know, really well shipped, really good instructions, really good fit, really well designed, in my opinion. You just kind of follow his instructions of where to put stuff and where to tack. And then he has some instructions of, hey, weld it like this so that you don't have warpage or anything like that. And I think it's a great bumper. It is. And it was relatively cheap because it's a weld together yourself bumper. So I got the one designed for a front hitch because, again, I wanted to use my winch and a cradle, and he has that option. So I just said, hey, I want a GMT 400 with a hitch setup. He sells them the general style is with an actual winch mount. But I said, I want a hitch. And he was like, okay, sounds fine, no problem. Mounts in the factory location, so it kind of intersects on the inside of the frame rail with the Off-Road Designs solid axle swap kit. So it all kind of intersects with each other, just FYI. Then I added these just 2 lights, and then I also added the tubes. I wanted to kind of finish it out. It's a good looking bumper by itself, but I added the tubes. I thought just on this thing with a spare tire carrier, that added some tubes would help out quite a bit, which I think it does. I think it's a very kind of off-road design style, you know, front tubes with a little stinger and brace bars. I also felt like it would help with these wings to add some support for these wings, so that, you know, if you kind of come down and hit them, that they wouldn't bend up or anything like that, which it should do as well. But yeah, bumper turned out awesome. I was pretty happy with how that one turned out. But so, I mean, it's stock for Vortec 5.7, 4L60E, manual shift, 241 T-case. The only thing I haven't done is front drive shaft, because the 241 that was in my Suburban had a flange, that big long bell design flange on the front output. And so I had a front drive shaft set up for that. This is just a standard yoke. So I'm gonna have to do something for a front shaft, whether I build one or whether I get one from like Tom Woods. I don't know. We'll see what I end up doing. So that's one of the last things I did. Oh, and on this one I just did Ford shock towers. That's what I do on a lot of my builds. Just Ford shock towers, modified, cut up a little bit, welded straight to the frame. Everything else is the same as the old video that I had on my Suburban, as far as axles and stuff. Big beefier tie rod with 1-inch offset tie rod ends from Rough Stuff. But, oh, and on exhaust, I actually bought a kit that is designed to be a full replacement exhaust system for these from Jegs. All the way from manifolds all the way back. I did have to modify just a little bit, because obviously you got to make some clearance for a front drive shaft going down to the axle now, instead of a stationary one. I don't know if you can see where I kind of had to cut up a little bit and move it over so that there's room for the front drive shaft. Other than that, the whole kit bolted in pretty well. Besides having to modify that for solid front axle. And it has a Flowmaster 50 series muffler that came with it, and then just comes out to a single tip there. I think it sounds really good. With this thing being something that I'm driving on the road quite a bit, this thing being something I drive on the road quite a bit, I didn't want it to be, you know, really loud and poppy, but it sounds considerably better than it did. You can actually hear it now. Before, so sometimes you're like, did it die? It's just really, really quiet. But I freaking love this thing. This one, I mean, I loved my Suburban. It was useful. You know, you can haul a lot of people, stuff like that, but this one's unique. And if anybody follows any of the stuff that I build or do, you know that I really like unique. I like doing stuff that's a little bit different, that you don't hear a lot, or that you don't see a lot. You know, I got a bunch of 8.1 stuff. I took a freaking square body crew cab long bed and turned it into a freaking wheeler with Rockwells. You know, I like, you know, seeing different stuff. I like building different stuff that's unique that you don't see a lot. I think everybody that knows anything about anything when it comes to Chevy trucks knows you really don't see a lot of these 2-door Tahoes, even driving around in stock form, let alone something like this that was a base model. with crank windows and matte floors and still with the barn doors and everything like that, let alone solid axle swapped with 1 tons. So that's why I was pretty excited to do this. I know some people are like, that seems kind of crazy that you tore apart a whole Suburban that was set up with most of this and put it into this. It only took me 1 month from literally the day I decided, you know what, screw it, I'm doing it, to the day to this thing on its own feet, you know, ready to be fired up and driven out of the shop, was exactly 1 month. So it's kind of nice when you've already done it before, you know all the little tips and tricks. And it took me only like a weekend and a half to tear down the entire Suburban and pull all the parts out of it. I still have the 8.1 out of the Suburban. It's just in the shop. I still have the 480E and the 241 out of it sitting in the shop. I'm sure it'll go into something else one day, because you don't throw away good parts. But yeah, this is my 2-door Tahoe. Oh, and the other thing, I guess, on the one last thing. So this thing, when I first bought it, it is this like forest green, but it was just the green with black fender flares. In fact, I think my thumbnail picture I put on there shows that. I had seen a handful of times in GMT 400 this color combo, which was forest green with the gold. And I just thought it was sharp. I thought it was awesome. I've always thought it was good looking. So when I got this one that was a forest green, I said, screw that, I'm doing it. So I went and found this is a GM like color code from Duplicolor. I think it's like gold metallic is what they call it. And so I, you know, sanded it down and painted it with that paint in a can, because that's my jam. I do everything spray paint style. And I think it obviously just adds that much more to this thing. So, you know, pretty sweet.